Welcome everyone to our webinar this morning, Workplace Insights for Breakroom Growth, presented by Smucker Company. Just a couple of things, housekeeping wise. We are recording this session this morning, so we'll have that available for everyone. We'll send it out. We'll post it on the ISG website. Also, as we go through, we will take questions at the end, but if you think of something you'd like to ask, feel free to use the chat function. Just type your messages in, and then we'll address all of those at the end of the session. So we have three presenters today from JM Smuckers. We have Christine Johnson. Christine is the Regional Sales Manager. We have Bob Palmiere. He's the Corporate Account Manager. And we have Stephen Glass, Principal of the Resource Group. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Christine.
Great. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, everybody. I'm Christine Johnson with Smuckers. Thank you for attending today. We're hoping that you find today's webinar informative and that we can offer you some next steps, some information that you can give to your end users. It really covers some insights and trends, but it's such a unique time that we're hoping that some of these are very useful to you and you can apply them. We're going to be asking some questions in between. So you're going to see, hopefully, if technology cooperates with us, you're going to see a little screen pop up and it's going to ask a question. Just click on it. It's really anonymous, but you'll be able to see where other members, what they're thinking, and we can kind of gauge. So it will hopefully keep it a little more interactive as well. And as Janet said, please make sure if you have questions, put them in the chat. We're going to be monitoring that. Here's our agenda today. We're going to introduce the team. We're going to cover some insights since COVID, some of the industries that have been impacted, and then we're going to talk about the importance of brand sustainability and safety, what we're seeing, and then any support from Smuckers and some next steps. So we're going to pass it off to Bob, and he's going to give you a little introduction of himself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Bob Palmiere. I am the Corporate Account Manager over our Office Supply Business Products Division at Smucker. Thank you all for making a little time to join us today. Hopefully you find this insightful and informative. Between Christine and I, we've got a lot of years of coffee and consumer products goods experience. So again, hopefully we can make this impactful for you.
Thank you. And just a little background on myself. I started in the coffee business working for Superior Coffee, if anybody recognizes that name. I've been with Sara Lee and then now with Smuckers for about 8 years, always focused on coffee and now specifically helping to grow Breakroom. So hopefully you find a lot of the information positive. And Stephen?
Thank you very much, Christine. Stephen Glass, Managing Director of the Resource Group Midwest. 27 years of professional sales and marketing. We're pleased to be here today. Our national team of dynamic sales professionals, we're here to help grow your business and looking forward to sharing some of our insights.
Great. I just wanted to give you a quick little snapshot of who is Smuckers. You always get asked, oh, you do the jelly and jam. Well, as you can see, we're a little bit more than jelly and jam. We actually have a really great portfolio of products in our pet food and pet snacks, in our coffee and our consumer foods. So we have our headquarters in Orrville, Ohio, and this just gives you a little snapshot of the number of employees. I'm going to pass it to Bob.
So I've got the pleasure of taking you all through a kind of a macro update of what's going on and what we're seeing as a result of COVID in the U.S. So first thing, we want to kind of level set in terms of the states that are quote unquote open for business. There are fewer and fewer restrictions as time goes on and as COVID cases continue to drop. There are still a fair amount of restrictions on the West Coast and on the Northeast. A lot of the central United States and Midwest is what they're calling mostly open. Now, that's kind of a macro catch-all term that they use, but there's still a significant amount of restrictions around events, right? I mean, we all have seen that in our own lives, as well as with restaurants. And as a result, there's industries that are being hit a lot harder than others. The stay-at-home orders play into that as well, although there are fewer of them these days. There are still a lot of states enforcing some curfews and things like that. So while free movement isn't necessarily being restricted, there's just less to do, right? And less opportunities to be out there, and less people in the office, most importantly to us. Even states where the offices are open, there are almost in all cases less people in those offices. So advance to the next slide. As far as unemployment, we've seen most people were out of work early on in the pandemic. We've seen that number kind of slowly creep down. It's worked out to roughly 6.3% is the rate in the US right now. That sounds kind of low, but you've got to take into account that about 500,000 people have left the workforce altogether. So there are less people actively searching for employment these days. And I guess the sectors that have been hardest hit by this vary. So higher income earners are much less affected by this. Mid-income earners, a little more affected, but not quite as much. It's the lower income folks, the service sector primarily, that has been, decimated by this. There are estimates that, over 10,000 restaurants have already closed just in the New York metro area. And there are going to be a whole lot more, we think, as time goes on here. But, next slide, please. It's not all bad, right? I mean, there's sort of a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel now. The vaccine rollout has begun. The pace is quickening. I think last I saw, yesterday or the day before, they did about 1.6 to 1.7 million vaccinations. Again, that pace has quickened a lot since December, and it's expected to get up even higher. I think I saw under the current pace, about half the country will be fully vaccinated by, June-ish. And that's at the current pace. As the pace quickens, hopefully that pace picks up a bit as well. West Virginia, believe it or not, New Mexico, Alaska, the states with smaller populations relative to the others are doing the best with it right now. Some states are as high as 15 to 18% of their people have been vaccinated. The larger states with higher populations are a little slower, but again, it's a lot more complex for them to get it out. So there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I think we should all be planning for what comes out the other side of this and as things start to reopen.
So now we're going to attempt a quick poll because we wanted to get some insights from you. If you could just click on your screen, hopefully we start to see some answers coming in. What % of your end users have returned to at least 80% occupancy? We'd just like to get just some feedback, seeing where people are falling in place. Lots of numbers coming in. So, and then the second part of that question was, if less than 75%, when do you see it returning to 80%? So we got a lot of people clicking in. Okay, share results. So it looks like the majority, 45%, say that about 26 to 50% are at 80%. Then coming in, 0 to 25%. Not many are at that 100%. And people are still thinking that it's almost half and half with when we see it 80% and over. So about half of you are saying between 1 and 5 months, and half are saying 6 to 12 months. So that's interesting.
Yeah, and Christine, if I may, I think what you'll see here, we share your sentiment, and you'll see kind of some data further along here that supports a lot of what you guys are seeing out there. But there are still some sectors that are very resilient. If anything, there's some sectors that have grown, and there are opportunities out there. Just sort of have to know where to look for them. So more to come on that.
And let's talk a little bit about the insights and the impact on the manufacturing industry due to COVID. That they have been significant. And what we're seeing right now is COVID is forcing massive supply chain disruptions. And that is directly impacting merchandising decisions. So I'll give you an example. The Trans-Pacific trade, which is the cargo lines between us and Europe and China, have actually reached max capacity, the first time ever. We are seeing voyages being canceled and lead times extending 3 weeks plus. That's unheard of in the industry. So lots of challenges getting products into the country, lots of challenges with cost of producing products here. The result, we are seeing numerous manufacturers in our traditional business products industries and outside going through massive SKU rationalization. There are some positives to COVID and some negatives. So when you look at the negative, there are some industries that have really been impacted. Take office coffee service, OCS. That disruption is significant. They're a competitor to many of the folks on the phone today, and we do not know what the OCS recovery plan looks like. It has set them back significantly. In the same conversation, COVID has benefited those resellers servicing essential businesses. And if you're not today or you are, look heavily at distribution fulfillment centers, production plants, manufacturing plants, healthcare, trucking companies. All these segments have actually increased, not decreased, during COVID.
So just to talk a little bit more about what Stephen was saying, with the office coffee segment, it has really been impacted. It is down about 65%. That was in the first quarter of this year. And you can just see where those job losses are hitting. But think about how they sell and who they sell to. They're very specific. It's usually just to break rooms and these micro markets and some vending. So they've still got capital expenditures that they have to take into consideration, and SKU rationalization. There's a lot that they need to take into consideration. But as Bob was saying earlier, we do see that there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we feel like we're in this recovery mode. But what we want to take away from that is, what do we need for these end users to feel that they're getting the right information? Their business models may have changed. Their budgets may have changed. So we want to make sure that we're addressing those changes that they're being confronted with on a daily basis, and how to educate you and your teams to make sure that we're giving you the right information that makes you more confident and helps give a better message for your end user.
So as a result of this, we've been living with this almost a year now, right? 5 years ago, we couldn't have been as productive as we've been. Tools like Zoom and others have really allowed us to stay connected as best as possible. But it's also taught us a lot of what we didn't like about the pre-COVID world. Expectations have changed. And as most of you do a lot of business in white collar offices, this is something to really keep in mind. Most folks don't think you need to go to the office 5 days a week anymore, especially not that 8 to 5. Flex working was sort of, it was the exception, not the rule pre-COVID. And a lot of people kind of said in surveys that they almost felt, bad taking flex working hours, even if it was offered. That stigma's gone. What we're hearing from a lot of our key customers is that even when their offices do reopen, it's going to be more like 2 to 3 days a week in the office to meet with vendors, to meet with folks that you can't kind of do via Zoom to brainstorm, and then 2 to 3 days a week at home. Now that drastically cuts down on the amount of break room services overall. So the market in white collar will shrink. I mean, we think that it'll come back to roughly 75 to 80% of it was pre-COVID, but in order to get it back to 100, we've got to diversify and go after some of those other segments that Stephen brought out. We also think that workplace flexibility is going to be really important in terms of space, right? There's been a lot of scuttlebutt around commercial real estate, and there not being as much of a need for it. But if you look at some of the big tech companies out there, they're investing heavily in space. And it's simply because you got to distance people these days. They're going to want to be able to have an office with a door that they can shut and feel safe in. They're going to want to have to come out and meet with folks as needed and then get back into their office. Also, spending time with colleagues, man, we took that for granted before COVID. People aren't taking that for granted anymore. They're really understanding that social connection is, it's missing in a lot of our lives right now. Also, investing in technology, it's critical. Like it's a non-starter anymore. Some of us in this industry has always known that. The office products industry has kind of been ahead of, a lot of the businesses that have been affected by this, but it's more evident than ever. Technology is important. And with that means technology at people's homes. They need a better office setup. We've all scrambled to try to get the desk and the second monitor, but that's going to be so important moving forward. So there's opportunities there for you all. And finally, health and well-being matters. The life-work balance has never been more important than it is today. We're all under an intense amount of stress. Our kids are home learning from home in a lot of cases. You can't step away from the office because the office is home. Flexibility is going to be important. And with that goes healthier eating, more indulgent type beverages, and better opportunities for higher end experiences in the office as it relates to Breakroom.
So that leads us into some of the trends that we've been looking at. We've done a lot of research, and we keep trends front of mind because it drives a lot of our decisions. You look at what's important. Sustainability is still important, even though with everything that's happening with COVID and more disposables and things, there's still a lot of concern, especially with younger consumers, on sustainability. Premium coffee is vital now. People want, these really great coffee products. They've been drinking them at home. When they come back to the office, they're going to want them. Technology, as Bob mentioned, is vital. And then we did touch on some more enhanced flavors. People are looking for things that they feel better eating. Convenience, of course, is always going to be number one with most people, but those better for you ingredients is going to be important. The elevated experience, we don't have as many social interactions. So now these experiences are vital to us. And brand matters. And if you walk away with anything today, it's really important to look at brands and brands that tell a story. These trusted brands have been very important and doing quite well right now. We're just going to touch on that a little bit later in this presentation. So now we're going to try it again, another poll on trends. We just want to find out which trends your customers are asking about. Choose all that apply, sustainability, premium offerings, technology. You can read through those. So let's see if you're getting asked some of the questions that we're seeing. I see national brands kind of clicked in there immediately. Oh, a lot of things changing here. I'm looking at the numbers. We've got about half of you have voted, so thank you. They're still coming in. Looks like right now, convenience and national brands. Yep, there we go. Convenience and national brands seems to be what are most of the ask, but also technology and sustainability. So it kind of falls in line with what we've seen and some of the questions that we've been asked. So that's good that it matches up well with what our research is bringing to us. Trusted brands, these trusted national brands, there's confidence in them because you look at the process and the safety behind it. You know that it's something that you can take comfort in, especially a name like Folgers. That's where people are resonating. I pulled this information just from some websites that I've been reading. Kellogg's is doing really well. People want to see these national brands. Stephen was telling a story earlier about Purell and how that is flying off the shelves. And then you have some maybe private label or no names that still are sitting there. So people trust these brands. This is what they're looking for.
Yeah, so the Folgers brand is an interesting case study in exactly that, right? I mean, we've talked with a lot of you over time about Folgers, right? And it's always been, or it's been for a very long time, America's #1 coffee brand, but we've seen our share over the last 3 to 4 to 5 years sort of just start to dip a little bit. Frankly, we had a hard time, attracting younger consumers. We didn't really, I guess, invest in specialty beverage as well as we probably should have. But this pandemic has driven people back to the brand en masse. We've attracted something like 1.4 million new customers and retained them since the start of COVID. And those customers drastically skew younger, Gen X, Gen Z, and millennials. So the brand has kind of found a new foothold, and it's going to be important for us to continue to speak to that audience.
So this actually references restaurants, but I just wanted to have this in there because it just kind of shows that even the age groups of who is finding socially responsible restaurants as an important feature of who they're going to choose when they go to a restaurant, it is increasing. So it's top of mind right now. And I think this is going to be a trend that we're going to see really top of mind going forward.
Thank you, Christine. Let's talk a little about safety, because safety is the driving factor in reopening our schools and commercial businesses. And I think we would all agree, without schools and offices opening up, we don't have as much product to sell. And within those areas, safety in the break room is one of the several key areas to focus on. And it's actually interesting that pre-COVID, social distancing would have been discouraged. And now distancing, as Bob referenced before, is redefining the spaces that we live in. And historically, bulk food and drinks were accepted as an everyday benefit. But now and overnight, the demand for single serve utensils, individually packed, and more are an incredibly high demand. When you look at that break room, coffee is directly impacted by what's happening. And we're seeing that from individual creamers to brewers. And today, that low touch or no touch demand has exceeded all of our expectations. It's significant. And without you as a reseller offering real solutions for the break room, your end users will not reopen the break rooms.
So let me just build this out. As we talked about, technology is important. We have systems in place that maybe we're a little slower to adapt, but it's what's been driving a lot of growth right now, even in our own business. People are looking for things that are simple. They're looking for things that are low touch, sanitary systems, but they want something that still is going to be tasty and fits in with what the end users are looking for. Because people put in requests and they say, we want a great tasting coffee. We want great tasting products. So technology is going to play quite a role. And I see this continuing definitely throughout the year. So we're going to try to do a quick poll on safety real quick, if that pops up. There you go. Which break room safety inquiries have your end users brought to you? We're just curious, what are some of the things? Is it signage that they're asking for? Bulk creamers? Let's see where a lot of you are voting quickly on this one. Thank you for that. It's changing by the second. Looks like a lot are definitely asking for those individually wrapped utensils. It seems to be a big one. And alternatives to bulk seems to be coming in rather high. There you go. So over half are being asked about those individually wrapped utensils, and then portion control. That makes a lot of sense. It definitely goes in with the trends that we're seeing. Okay, if I can close that one. can kind of lead into what Stephen was going to talk about.
It's actually interesting polls. Thank you for participating. And what you're saying is exactly what all the insights and research that J.M. Smucker's company has come up with. So we're right in line. Let's talk snacking within that break room. We kind of touched base on coffee, but snacking has changed because of COVID. It's actually increasing, but the end users at the same time it's increasing, they're looking for healthier options. That is a direct trend that we saw in some of the earlier comments, and you should be prepared to provide more healthier snacking options for your end users when they reopen.
So what does all this mean, right? What have we seen? What are the trends and where can we capitalize? I mean, really, that's what this all comes down to. Are you prepared for what the new world is going to bring to it? Working from home is now going to be a big segment of who you are going to be targeting or who you should be targeting, right? As I mentioned before, 2 to 3 days a week in the office, 2 to 3 days a week at home seems to be the norm. How do you get that experience to folks in the building and then translate that to at home? How do you keep them productive in the office? How do you sell to that audience? That's going to be stuff that you all need to really think about. And, you know, whether that means weekly subscription snack and coffee boxes to surprising and delighting your employees with little gifts and trinkets throughout the year. Those are real things that we encourage you to think about. Drop shipping, of course, of these things is important. And while that adds cost and does erode profitability, we think it's going to be integral to ensuring that we still have a place in the break room and that you all can maintain and even grow your business in the future. Also, we talked about some of the different sectors where we've seen most success. We don't see this slowing down even after COVID, right? What we call essential businesses, basically what stayed open through all the worst of the shutdowns and what will continue to stay open. And it really is manufacturing and fulfillment and distribution, call centers, offices with 50 plus employees. Of course, it will always be, you know, important to all of us, but these are the places where you really need to be focusing if you're not already. We have pushed a lot of coffee recently through you know, Amazon warehouses and Home Depot warehouses and you know, different fulfillment and distribution centers. And these folks are high volume, right? They're still there. They're still working. Some of these places have 2,000 to 3,000 employees in the building. They go through a lot of coffee and a lot of snacks. Their demand on their time and, you know, their productivity is huge. And the ability to go grab a quick cup of coffee and a snack and get back out there to work is really important to their job function. So keep that in mind as you're looking for new opportunities.
So the great news, guys, we are here to help. J.M. Smuckers is prepared to help your sales teams and your end users convert business to their product line, as well as help them understand everything that you've heard here on how to open up safely.
And I just wanted to show you some of the areas of growth that we're looking at, you know, after COVID. We are focusing on our pet snacks and pet food. Coffee is always number one in my mind. So that's one of the things we're looking to grow. And our food and our snacking. Think about it, as Bob talked about, these little subscription boxes, different ways to get things to that work from home person, along with following them to the office as well. So there's a couple of different avenues that you can take, and hopefully we can help support you with some of our products.
So as Christine mentioned, there's growth with pet, growth with coffee, growth with snacking, but we're also here to help you grow your business and provide you additional resources. So just some examples of the things that we've been doing during COVID, actually prior to COVID, during COVID and post. So on the left, you see part of our virtual training showroom. So if you have an end user or coffee specialist on your team that really want to understand how the product works, they want to compare filter packs versus a red can, we can do that for you within a 45-minute notice. We have the showroom set up and ready to go. It's all virtual. On the lower right-hand side, tons of digital marketing support materials, banner ads, outbound marketing messages, We actually have bandwidth to work with you and say, if you want to run some promotions and need the digital help, we're there to help. And lastly, upper right, while we really do miss on-site visits and showrooms and meetings, when appropriate, we are ready to show up and show off. And then really what's next? We should be talking, and we're happy to do one-on-ones with everyone on this call about conversion opportunities, making sure your sales team are looking at the right products and converting them from low margin to higher margin products. There's low touch options available from JMS. Work with end users on Breakroom solutions. If you have a dedicated coffee team, we have a Coffee 101 program that we can spend part of a day together and tell you about coffee and everything you need to know about it. Let's engage those end users as discussed before with virtual demonstrations. Let's engage your marketing team with digital engagement. Let's talk about how to support the business and grow it together.
So now we're going to open it up to any questions. Please feel free, put those in the chat. Bob Dahlgren is going to be monitoring that for us and able to share any questions that you have. We're here to answer them as a panel, and hopefully some of this information is resonating really well with your teams.
All righty, waiting on the chat here. So any input there be great. You know, some of the questions I know in talking to a number of resellers out there is, you know, understanding what communication tools we can help people to make some of those choices. You mentioned a few. Any you know, flyers and things of that nature that are able to help with those choices?
Yeah, so Bob, let me take that one. So we've done different communications throughout the year, whether it be, you know, early in the pandemic, we focused a lot on just, you know, hey, how are you? The JM Smucker Company is here. You know, we're thinking about you. We hope everything is well and that you're safe. As the thing has gone on, we've definitely tried to send insights out via different email campaigns. We've reached out to, you know, we've had different programs with different dealers who have helped us to reach out to their end users to provide, you know, information and to provide opportunity for sampling events and things to that effect.
Very good.
Hey, Bob, I'll ask a question for
Sure.
our shy guests. Talk for a minute about what James Smuckers is doing in response to new merchandising with the demand for bulk product going down in smaller packs. What do you see happening in the next 6, 12, 18 months in terms of our individual merchandising assortment?
Great question, Steve. And I don't say that to you very often, but that was a good one.
You do not.
I had to get one in there for you. Sorry.
That's fair.
But no, in all seriousness, I mean, we've mentioned it a couple of times. Individually wrapped and single serve is going to be really important. What I think is most manufacturers, us included, are going to have to, I guess, thread the needle between sustainability and single serve. It's not an easy thing, right? We have spent the last 10 years going towards bulk and eliminating waste, especially single-use plastics. And in the last year, that demand for that has exploded. So how do we, I guess, manage those two different worlds? They're sometimes competing, but there is opportunity in there. You know, some of our products, like our Sahali snacks, are, you know, they're individually wrapped, but those packages are not, they're not plastic based. So they're, you know, I guess a little bit more sustainable, as are the ingredients that go within them. So we think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of stuff coming out in the next year.
Still waiting on any questions here.
You guys are shy today.
Yeah.
I guess maybe we just did such a great job explaining that
Well,
there are no questions.
Everybody has something to walk away with. Maybe some ideas of different places to target, different ideas on how to maybe optimize SKUs that you're looking at. We're here to help. our team, the TRG team, we're all here to work together, and we want to thank everybody for joining today, and let us help you grow your break room. So thank you everybody for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day and have a great weekend. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the participation, and Bob and Stephen and Christine, thank you so much as well.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.